let's get the cameras rolling as far as the topic, and then we can talk about all sorts of stuff. Um, so, with that, I'd like to welcome everybody to Inside the Doctor's Lounge. I'm your host, Dr. Desmond Bell, and I'd like to welcome you to our place where we can discuss any number of topics freely, whatever is on our mind, kind of free form. And with me, as usual, are my co-hosts, Rhonda Crow, the CEO of MD Coaches, Dr. Rick Zollinger, and Dr. Randy Cook.
Guys.
So, good morning, everybody. So a couple of days ago, I just want to start things off. The same day I got texts or emails from both Rhonda and a friend of mine who's not medical. And it's where the worlds collide, sort of. My friend just always send me goofy stuff, but he sent me this article that was in the New York Post, of all places, about doctors posting bikini selfies. And then Rhonda sent me similar article from the Boston Globe, and it's about a recent study that was published that created all sorts of controversy and a backlash that resulted in doctors taking selfies of themselves with in bikinis or swimsuits, or holding alcoholic beverages. And it really stemmed from a study that was published. That just we're looking at this like, okay, what was the point of all this, really? Let me just read. It was from the Journal of Vascular Surgery, and basically it touched on the impact of publicly available social media content and how it could affect future patients' physicians' choices. So what was really kind of one of the disturbing aspects of this is that the researchers actually created fake social media accounts to kind of troll people and see what they were doing. And it's like, where does this is just really, I don't want to say just disturbing, but it kind of speaks to a number of things beyond just the study, which was just kind of silly in my opinion. But where we've come, and it made me start thinking back to when my daughter was, I don't know, about maybe 12 or 13, having one of the talks with her about how you have to be responsible with social media, and what you put out there is out there forever, and it could come back to haunt you, and how you have to be really careful with how you're portrayed. Even this day and age, a simple soundbite can be taken out of context, and people can hold it against you. In this, again, we've talked about the cancel culture, so there's a lot going on with this topic. So I just want to kind of have you guys weigh in and see what your thoughts are. And again, too, just the fact that I had this friend of mine who's not medical, it caught his attention. I'm sure that this similar articles were published all around the country in different newspapers, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's get the ball rolling on this.
Des, the interesting thing for me about this entire event is this is not the first time that examinations of medical professionals in social media has been examined in prestigious medical journals. In the Journal of Vascular Surgery, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more clinically relevant and clinically rigid journal. But this one was different. I'm going to go right on out there. Thank goodness I don't have to face anybody in a real doctor's lounge tomorrow to defend myself. But I think it was just unprofessional and poorly planned. And there's very little scientific about this so-called study. There was absolutely no attempt to conceal the identity of people that might have been identified in these on the accounts that were trolled. Just a generally bad idea, and I don't disagree with the intent. The age of maturity, as they say, gets older and older and older, and I think it's a good idea to remind people from time to time that they can drop into a deep hole in social media, but it wasn't done very well. So
yeah, the methodology is certainly suspect.
Yeah.
Randy, you just said something that just we're always worried about HIPAA compliance and worried about protecting our patients. Yet here they took colleagues and
their own colleagues. Yeah.
The whole thing is, this is like you said, Randy, this is just the tip of the iceberg from my perspective, because we used to hold, as an example, Journal of American Medical Association and Lancet at very high standards, let alone all our surgical literature that you and I would read or Des would read. And I just am taken back that, and this reflects on the whole pandemic. Look what they've done with hydroxychloroquine and zinc. I mean, they attacked all this thing. Now they're coming back and saying, well, it does work in certain patients. And these were studies they put out as gold. And I don't know whether we need to go, it used to be that the guy who was in charge, the editorial board, had multiple people, and good golly, you couldn't get you guys know, you can't get anything published. It took you forever. You had to, if it was a phase 3 clinical trial, all the data. Yep. And now, that they just put up, this is like, I feel like they took it and made it into People magazine. That's the way it struck me, this whole thing, is why was it in the Journal of Vascular Surgery and not in Us, or People? Crazy.
I think that's a great point, and it reflects on, I think, a lot too what's going on in society. We used to, you have to check your sources, and when you're submitting a paper or anything, the citations, the research that goes into it, you had to make sure everything was airtight to the best of your ability. Now it's like things are hearsay, and you wonder why people don't trust anything anymore. It's become, we've heard this for years. Don't trust what's on the internet, or don't trust what's on social media. Well, this is kind of like everything is kind of converged on, and here's one of your examples or a result of what happens. This is you're right. It is like, it's like a gossip column. You're exactly right.
And we always, in the medical profession, we have always held ourselves to a higher standard.
Yep.
Short of your minister at church, I don't know, our standards were held to be very high. And somehow we've got to get back there. I don't know if you got to have some old I'm going to say old farts, and you can delete that. But anyway, you got to have somebody of our ilk, or you need to get the editorial boards back in control of how they bring in and what they perceive as appropriate.
I think that's a very serious issue that you're touching on there, Rick. And there's a litany of concerns from my perspective from this situation. One is the trust factor. It's a trusted journal. It always has been. Whenever something has been published in the New England Journal or the Lancet or any of these professional journals, the high standards are what you counted on, and they were unbiased. This study, it actually targeted female physicians.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you, I noticed from the Twitter response that the female physicians in particular felt that they had been targeted. Is that possible?
Because there's a large number of folks that were within that study that fell within the female category, that they were female gender.
And is it possible that editorial board at Journal of Vascular Surgery is mostly male?
Quite possible.
I honestly don't know. I mean, we're gossiping here, folks. It's the doctor's lounge.
It's the lounge.
I have no idea who ruled on that thing.
I looked at some of the photos that had been, that they used as an example from the one article. I saw guys in there too, but I just want to kind of bring up a point though too. And one of the, I'll quote you, one of the people who kind of, as a backlash, people who posted statements, and this was from a Twitter account. It's a young doctor. She says, because it's like hashtag med bikini, because I'm in a hospital at 4 a.m. and if you don't think 12-mile hikes, beers, and bikinis don't make me a better doctor, you're nuts. Well, listen, that's all fine. That's all well and good that you do those things. I'm just wondering, it's like, why do we feel the need that we have to post every single thing, or turn this into a public thing? You know, like, make your private business, part of the public narrative. Does everybody need that Andy Warhol 5 minutes of fame or 10 minutes of fame? It seems like, what motivates people to feel like they've got to. It's like, we all wear swimsuits. We do things. We socialize, and I never felt this need to. I've got to throw pictures out there all the time of it. I just don't understand.
I really appreciate you bringing that up. The reason being that I don't necessarily disagree with the intent of the study, which I think was to draw attention to the fact that what you broadcast becomes part of the public domain, and you should be careful. There's nothing wrong with that message. But, the way that they went about doing it, I'm afraid had exactly the opposite result. I think people are saying, you want me to show you some social media? I'll show you some social media, just
Yeah.
because they're angry because these guys were out there spying on people and publishing it in sort of a sensational way and calling it science. And I don't blame them for being angry about that, but nonetheless, I think the intent of the paper was absolutely right on point, and it wound up having the opposite effect.
Well, I think it also that response touched on a larger issue that is very present, but is not addressed. And that is sexism. And it happens to be in the medical arena currently with what we're talking about. But I think there's a lot of pain and anger and keeping one's tongue, if you will, that I can tell you from a female perspective, I've had to do throughout my entire career, that this touched that off. And that's what you're seeing as far as the reactions, the posts, the support from the male physicians that are out there that have also witnessed but maybe didn't feel comfortable in speaking up or supporting. And then it's bleeding over into this week where we're having women, there's a movement, hashtag women empowering women, because it's right along with the hashtag Me Too movement.
I got a feeling we're going to
see,
I think we're probably going to see an answer to this in Dr. Shikajane's meeting in the fall.
Potentially.
Yeah.
yeah, potentially. I will tell you, and I want to draw a little bit of attention to an article that is out just today on Kevin MD, which we're all familiar with, written by an OBGYN physician, Dr. Jessica Pierce, which I think articulates it very well in that what we do with our bodies is our choice, and it's also, we gain the repercussions from it too. I think also in there too, we need to take a look at the communication and how folks communicate is different generationally. We're all from different generations, and as I was raised up, it was very much the message that we're talking about. You're very cautious about what you're sharing publicly. I mean, I remember my grandmother telling me, monkey faces are seen out in public. So you have to be very cautious. That's not necessarily the way the younger generation has grown up. They've grown up that they live their lives online. They feel friends has a different definition. Friends for us may be a small circle of people we actually can touch. Friends for them, it's how many followers they have. I think there's actually some generational tones in here about how we're defining and seeing the culture change a little bit because of that.
I agree. I think that's a big part of all this that's going on, because frankly, with my colleagues, what people do in their own life is their business. When you show up for work, though, you got to work and you have to be focused and do the tasks at hand responsibly, best of your ability. It's like, if I were in the patient's position, honestly, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's an emergency and I'm waiting for a surgeon to come in, it's like, I trust that person. I don't care what he does in his spare time, if he volunteers or if he's, plays cards. It doesn't really matter to me. I guess it's just where we're wrestling as our generation. It's like, why do we feel this need to draw so much attention to ourselves? I just don't understand. Maybe it's just me personally. I don't understand the need to feel like you've got to be out there all the time, or just putting on this persona that a lot of times it's not even a real representation of that person. It's like, why set yourself up for this?
You want to hear a completely unjustifiable opinion on that?
Yeah, let it rip.
I think social media has unintentionally created what the engineers call an endless feedback loop. The social media has made it possible for us to communicate with just about anybody on the globe, and consequently, we have stopped interacting with people face to face.
Isn't that one of the ironies, Randy, is that we've got this technology too that is intended to bring us all closer together.
Right.
And yet, what do? We avoid true interpersonal contact. You can text somebody, but people generally don't want to pick up the phone or call somebody, or they're just rather text or email or anything to avoid that real interpersonal connection that Rhonda was talking about, with friends, people that you can actually touch, or your circle. But it's a mind blower.
I think it's a sociologic tsunami that way more intelligent people than I will write about for a very long time. The printing press, Gutenberg, kind of changed the world, and I think this is going to have a similar impact.
Yeah, and then television came along, and instead of sitting around the campfire, sitting around the TV, and we socialized that way, and then the medium is the message. That was the Marshall McLuhan, or Marshall McLunatic, however he was referred to as. But it's kind of, now we have this whole new thing for the younger viewers. That's a good name to Google.
Yeah,
it's a really good name to Google.
That.
Yeah.
When I understand what Rhonda's saying, because I have kids that age too. But that being said, I think that, how do I say, there's one with medicine, there's a professionalism to it. I agree with Randy, this day and age that we're in with being able to contact the whole world. But the problem I have with this is, and you'll see it right now as we come out of this pandemic, without human contact, I don't care what your business is, it's going to fail.
Yep.
Now that
we are social creatures.
And what is medicine? What is medicine? What is surgery? Do you not touch people? Can you do Zoom surgery? You probably will be able to. They'll do robotics. I mean, they have the ability.
Not on me.
Huh?
Not on me.
I mean, but they have the ability, for example, already robotically, that Mike DeBakey could have sat in on the Shaw's operation in Tehran on a computer console in Houston and assisted the surgeon. That already exists. So I understand that, but you have to have human contact. And you're going to have, this generation is going to have to be able to figure out how to separate professionalism from social media, whatever. But if that's just me. I mean, I can hear my dad yell in my ear said, when everybody started coming in with relaxing Fridays and stuff. He said, do you want to look down and have your heart surgeon look like this? Or do you want him to have a coat and tie and look professional? As you walk in and say, well, I'm going to operate on you. You could die. So I take that to the bank. I think there's a part of that.
I got a blog on that.
Your dad was tapping into the importance of an image that is being portrayed or put out into the public. So here we have social media, and that image that people are putting out on their social media feeds is their public persona, in a sense. So where's the difference? But we have a completely different mindset about this, which Rhonda mentioned earlier. I guess each generation has had, we did things differently than our parents did. They didn't agree with a lot of the stuff, whether it was, how long your hair was or the clothes you wore. And so we kind of have to take a step back too and say, okay, look what the kids are doing now. And you don't want to be the guy that's saying, get off my lawn. You don't want to be that person, but you got to kind of understand them too, But at the same time, it's like, we're critical thinkers too. And it's like, we see some red flags here, and kind of goes back to that. We are social creatures. We need certain things. We need human touch. We need interaction. Um, you look at the number of things that have been going on with this pandemic, number of suicides, child abuse, alcoholism, all these things are kind of coming to a head. It's really, these are bad things because people have been isolated for too long, in a sense. One little these are more symptoms of obviously of what happens.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I don't think we can solve all that. And I mean, like the issue you brought up, Rhonda, that's a whole nother thing altogether about, women's rights. And I mean, for all of us, that's been changing since like I said, the 20th century was a century of surgeons and these all powerful heads of departments. Now you can't name one since the turn of the century. And as we've gone forward now, remember 60% of our workforce in medicine going forward in the 2020s will be women. The women are 60% of the medical school class and even going higher. So I think that's going to evolve, and that'll just happen. And like you say, Dr. Jane and these women in medicine, that's great. But that's not going to happen next year. That's going to take a while, but it's going to happen.
It's evolving. It absolutely is evolving, and it's gaining a lot more exposure. And I think that's really where we are right now is 2020. I find it really kind of curious. 2020 is perfect vision. I just find it really interesting that, the veil is being pulled off of a lot of things to provide clarity this year. And I think this is one of the top ones that will continue to be talked about. And to your point, Rick, it will take a while. But right now, I think we're okay with just, let's put it out on the table. Let's acknowledge that it's there. That's the first step. And then how do we move forward so that when we are structuring new studies, we don't see biases and potential misogyny and those types of things creeping in. It's let's build a study to learn.
It's there in business besides medicine for women.
Oh, absolutely.
Pay scales are less at the same level. I mean, I have a daughter who's an executive at Snyder Lance, which is Campbell's, and I'm sure she's paid very well, but I guarantee you it's on a level like this with her male counterpart. Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. I don't ask her, but she says there's a little bit of that ceiling. So that's why she left one job, because it was basically male-dominated business. So she went to another company. So yeah, I hear you.
Des, I'm going to bring you back to your opening question, and that is, what exactly does all this mean? Well, looking strictly at the impact of this particular so-called study. And what I hope is that there will be a newfound respect for what constitutes a scientific study for anybody that's in the business of publishing a journal, because they just missed the mark on this one big time.
Listen, and maybe that'll be one of the silver linings too, that look, we can't allow this to happen again. This is embarrassing. It's just degrades all the good science and research that's gone on.
Absolutely.
This is just make this be a little learning or a teaching moment too, and all this. That's certainly one of the levels of this. And
to their credit, the authors of this thing have apologized. I'm not sure. This is all unfolding as we speak, as they say. But and I don't know if the editorial board has published an official position or not. But they really have made a mess and stepped in it.
I think you had a point well taken, though, Randy, and that's. I think if you locked them in the room there with you and said, well, what was your purpose? Your purpose was what you originally said was to, this can come back to bite you in the tail, folks. So I mean, they had a motive that was probably correct, but
in the purpose of their study, they said they were attempting to determine how well vascular surgeon community is moderating their social media presence. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
no.
No.
If
So
it's done in a professional manner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's make it look like science.
Yeah.
boy, yeah, you just made me think back of one of our previous shows where we were talking about apologizing.
Yeah.
What was the reason for apologizing? Were they sincere? Were they, or did they get egg on their face and they just want to wish they could get a do-over? But
No, I think that's a good question. You know, the article was retracted, but there was so much more revealed in both publishing as well as retracting the article and submitting the apology. Now, how do you go even further to make change so it doesn't happen again, to your point, Randy?
Well, back 30 years ago, I got tongue in cheek, you know, thinking of the English, and got a letter published in New England Journal, and it was tongue in cheek, poking fun at the way they analyze vascular programs, and I called it the Human Limb Index, the HLI. And if you went out and analyzed a vascular service, you went down, they had 10 patients, but they had no legs, then their HLI was humans to limbs was real high. And if they had all their limbs, they were doing a good job. And they published it, but it was tongue in cheek. And it was in the editorial section, and it was done in fun. And now think about that. That was 40 some years ago. And good golly, I wouldn't publish that. I wouldn't send that in now. But it was done. I think that was the idea of this. Only mine was just a letter. It was in response to something somebody had written that made me angry.
You know, Rick, I think it was probably, I don't know. It's been a while back, at least 20 years, maybe 25. One of the most prominent surgeons in this country, the chief of a department at a highly prestigious medical school. I believe that he was the president of the American College of Surgeons at the time, although I could be wrong about that, but it was one of the bigger organizations. And in any case, he published in the letters to the editor of a prestigious medical journal. What? No, actually, I don't. It might have been one of those newspaper style things. But in any case, he published a tongue-in-cheek article that was supposed to invoke some humor around Valentine's Day. It made some thinly veiled references to oral sex. And that was the end of his career. That's all it took. There were no questions asked. And this was like 35 years of profound surgical experience from a great educator. And that's the way it ended. And we're not even talking about social media here. This is something that was published in a print journal. It does have profound repercussions, and I think probably it always will. And again, I say, if you're going to do a medical journal, stick to the science and be relevant. And I can't help but think the people at Journal of Vascular Surgery were trying to get the attention of some of this younger audience. I don't know. That's strictly an opinion. And I hope I don't get any nasty mail from them. But the same rules, I think, apply even now, even with this new morality, that you really do have to respect the dignity of other people if you're going to be talking about them on the internet. Simple as that.
Sure, for sure.
Well stated.
Yep.
There's some more stuff we could talk about today, but I know we're kind of a little tight on time right now. So any last thoughts from anybody on this topic, or anything else you want to throw in there before we call it a day?
I think that is your gold nugget, that editorial boards will now go back to science in that respect. And the second nugget is what Rhonda brought up about the female population, and that's only enlightenment that we all need. So I think those are two good things that'll come out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rick. That's my hope too. Walking away from this is stick to the science and the issues that have been brought up from the sexism that exists in our culture, that we acknowledge it and we address it and we make some change.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all about mutual respect, and just how hard is that? Again, golden rule time. But Randy, there's a time and a place for everything. This is one of the little take homes, I think, with all this too. It's sure you want to be telling off-color jokes or whatever away from the spotlight. That's your business. If you feel the need to do that, but same time, it's like when it comes time to putting that science out there, stick to the science, stick to your professionalism, and just kind of keep in mind, you never know who's listening, who's watching, but be respectful. That's all. You don't have to get into that other area. George Carlin used to say, I'm a professional comedian, not the kind that you see hanging around the water cooler at work every day. So, just be what you are, and that's all you need to do.
I guess the only thing that I would like to add to all this is to make sure that it's clear to my friends here in this group and anybody that might be watching this, that I am profoundly aware that I have feet of clay just like everybody else. And I have made some mistakes on a much smaller scale. And I am so grateful that it was on a smaller scale and that I didn't find myself in this kind of trouble. I feel significant sympathy for the authors of that paper and the editorial board. I'm confident that they had no intention of causing harm to anybody, but this is the way it unfolds with great. What is it with higher positions come great responsibility? Be aware of the impact that your actions can have, and there, but for the grace of God go I. So good luck to those guys.
Yeah, I'm just wondering too, how long till this, how quickly this will be forgotten though too, with all the information that we're bombarded with every day.
Yep.
Sometimes
this could be wiped out by a story tomorrow.
Or later today, and that's it. It's like, oh, what was that? Oh, that seemed like that was years ago. So that's the other thing. I don't know. It's a fast-paced, smaller world for sure. Anyway, listen, I think we've had a really great discussion today. As always, I really appreciate all your thoughts on this, your input, and the different perspectives that we've taken to this really important topic. So again, we hope that you're enjoying our program. Inside the Doctor's Lounge is really a lot of fun for us, but we can talk about serious and fun things equally, and it's a place for us to have honest discussion. Bottom line, we hope that you will subscribe to our channel, and we certainly hope that you'll continue to listen to Dr. Randy Cook's RX for Success podcast. It's outstanding. Check out our website too, MD Coaches. We have some great blogs that we put out there, and the services that we're all offering really are certainly beneficial to all. And with that, I just want to end it by saying, as we always do, we see you, we believe in you, and we're here for you. Until next time, I'm Dr. Desmond Bell. Take care.
See you guys.
See ya. That's good.
Familiarity breeds contempt. A little pearl of wisdom that was passed on to me from my father, and it seemed highly relevant to the discussion we had today inside the Doctor's Lounge, where we were examining the impact and some of the backlash that an article that was recently published in the Journal of Vascular Surgery has had in both the medical community as well as the general population. The article in question was looking at how social media has impacted patients' perception of their doctors. Lots to talk about here today for sure. You know, inside the Doctor's Lounge is a place where we can have honest and frank, unfiltered discussion without any type of fear of repercussion. So we really hope that you enjoy being part of all this. My colleagues, Rhonda Crow, Dr. Rick Zollinger, and Dr. Randy Cook and I really enjoy bringing these shows to you. And we hope that you'll subscribe to our channel, ring that bell that you see there on your screen, and also check out Randy's RX for Success podcast. It's fantastic quality. And also don't forget to continue to check the MD Coach's website for our blogs and some other important information that is relevant to you. So until then, I'm Dr. Desmond Bell, your host for Inside the Doctor's Lounge, saying, we see you, we believe in you, and we're here for you. Until next time, take care.